Going to be joined by Jackie George, educator and consultant at the Sharjah Performing Arts Academy, and Matt Ball, director and associate program leader, also at Sharjah. So welcome to the conference, and over to you. Welcome.
Fantastic. So hello, everybody. This afternoon, we want to talk to you about how we began to embed a sustainable curriculum into all programmes at Sharjah Performing Arts Academy. For those of you who don't know, Sharjah Performing Arts Academy is a relatively new academy that opened its doors to students in 2019. S.P.A.A's undergrad programmes are accredited by the Commission for Academic Accreditation, part of the Ministry of Education here in the United Arab Emirates. All undergrad programmes accredited here are 4 years in duration, and the first year is a common first year, where we, as a senior team, design the programmes. We strive to ensure that all modules were delivered through the lens of contemporary theatre practice. This was an opportunity to design a curriculum without history, without habit, and focus on best practice. So what does this mean for the environment? For those of you, one of the 6 modules delivered to all acting, musical theatre and production arts and dance students in Sharjah Performing Arts Academy is Why Art Matters. And in this module, they explore how the arts impact their daily lives and how they, as creative practitioners of the future, influence this, aligning with the graduate attributes of the Academy. One of the most significant and successful classes of this module is Why the Environment Matters. So in this picture, for example, you can see this particular lesson being delivered. Students are asked to explore current approaches to performance, specifically addressing the climate emergency. Lungs at Shaboona by Duncan Macmillan is viewed, and in the same way that the production was entirely powered by a cyclist, the lesson is delivered whilst the tutor is continuously cycling. Richley's TED Talk, The Arts in a Sustainable World, is also shown, highlighting how we have to reframe the environment as encompassing and not supplementary. Interviews about Beirut's trash theatre are delved into, and work from organisations such as Julie's Bicycle and the Theatre Green Book are introduced. But what does this have to do with creating a performance, both in content and process, about sustainability? Without this first step, the engagement from all programmes, students and faculty would be limited, with the students in the same class from acting, production arts, musical theatre and dance. It becomes the responsibility of all. And this is a seed that is planted in year 1. So it began to develop as a production for the students in year 3.
So each year, with the 3rd year acting students collaborating with the 3rd and 4th year production students, we devise a new piece of original work. As the UAE prepared to host COP28 in 2023, it seemed like an ideal opportunity for us to explore these ideas around sustainability practically, to create an original piece of work which documented the students' experience of living with climate change in their daily lives and for that of their compatriots. So we started to create a piece which explored eco-dramaturgy principles in form and content, asking questions about the material we use in the production process alongside the materials we use to devise the work from. So drawing on verbatim interviews, personal data, climate science and historical documents, we created a multilingual piece of contemporary performance which gave voice to regional youth and addressed misconceptions about their lived experience. The piece used 5 basic principles, which we saw earlier in the upside down triangle, but basically these are reduce, refuse, reuse, recycle, and rubbish. Reduce. Do we need to use it? We only used what was necessary. Refuse. We refused to use anything that's harmful to the environment. Reuse. We tried not to use any virgin materials. Can we use stock items? Can we use it secondhand? Recycle. Make sure that we recycle anything which can't be reused. And rubbish. If something really can't be reused or recycled, we have a duty of care to make sure we dispose it in the best way possible. Okay, so that's all very well in principle, but how did this work in practice? So first of all, to make this work, alongside the academic programs, we have to make sure the students and staff buy into the principles and process. To do this, we have to make it personal. So our production team, actors, technicians, designers, staff, are drawn from British, Lebanese, Saudi, Syrian, Kenyan, Egyptian, German, South African, Mauritanian, Belizean, Palestinian, Moroccan, and Jordanians. And we all live in the UAE. So we had to find a way to make our common experiences shared and to make our differences explicit. So we started off looking at water and the statistic in Mike Berners-Lee's book, How Bad Are Bananas? We explored representing some of these statistics with plastic bottles. So, for example, someone in the US uses 3,750 litres of water per day on average, whereas a student from Palestine, Haneen, in the previous picture, used only 217 litres per day. We looked at power consumption used to desalinate the water they use for their daily shower, and how just reducing that shower slightly would reduce the amount of CO2 equivalent tons they produce in a year, to make that personal connection between their own actions and what the effect on the environment is. We found news clips from their home countries of people affected by climate change. We performed these verbatim, such as a man digging multiple wells in Mauritania to try and find water, and Ali, pictured here, dug a whole oil drum of earth out while his colleagues licked popsicles while he tried to find the 200 milliliter bottle of water buried at the bottom. We never wanted to become preachy though. So whilst we banned disposable bottles from the rehearsal room, wore thrift store costumes dyed with vegetable-based dye, and only used low-energy lighting fixtures, we didn't try to tell the audience what to think, but we wanted them to think. In preparation for the devising process, the designer Lena, a Palestinian Lebanese based in Dubai, and I had multiple conversations about the materials we would use and their afterlife. So all the costumes were secondhand, or pre-loved, as people like to call it these days. All the items used to set and props were pre-used. And this is perhaps the hardest bit. We have to get used to a new way of working. So we've got used to, in this convenient world we live in, of buying our productions off Amazon. We don't have to leave our air-conditioned rehearsal rooms, and it appears the next day as if by magic. But if this is made in a factory 10,000 kilometers away and comes wrapped in bubble wrap in a cardboard box, it has a different cost. So Lena and the production art students sourced all the props from markets, including used barrels which had not held toxic materials. Remember, we didn't want to use anything that's harmful to the environment. This creates an extra layer of work for the production team, and they had to come up with solutions where it might have been quicker, easier, simpler to go with the tried and tested. And we also had to consider the afterlife of materials. Costumes are relatively easy. They can go into a store and be worn again or adapted. But what do you do with 3,000 plastic bottles? Well, they're all collected during the rehearsal process. So we could have just sent them all to the recycling centre, safe in the knowledge that they've not been landfilled. But remember, we had that hierarchy. Yeah. So reusing comes before recycling. How do you reuse drinking water bottles that have been rolled on by actors on a dirty floor? Can you do that? Well, not really, but if you put some effort in, some thought in, you might find a solution. So we talked to local institutions and found the College of Fine Art could reuse the PET bottles to make filament for their 3D printer. So that's what we did. What do you do next? Well, after the show, we evaluated. We looked at what worked and what didn't, and what we might take forwards. And we weren't just thinking about this in terms of fulfilling the requirements of the Green Book. We're thinking about this creatively and educationally. One of the biggest wins for the institution was financial, where the cost of the production was significantly lower than the equivalent production the year before. And this is a great incentive to get the institution to buy in. Money really does talk. And artistically, well, the production was well received. And we've just made a second show using the same principles, but with the content not being quite so explicitly about the environment. It was a response to the recent flooding which we've just had in the UAE, which has been the worst we've experienced for decades. So we were looking at the results of climate change rather than exploring climate change as the material itself.
So whilst the focus and the attention to how we respond to the climate emergency on this production was centre stage, it enabled the students' attention and learning to concentrate on how we work sustainably. It's only fair to acknowledge that we're not perfect, far from it, and future productions don't always make the best decisions in terms of choosing where to source a piece of costume or what material to build the set from. However, the knowledge is there and can be further developed, and the students understand that to work according to the best practice requires time. This level of planning is the responsibility of the programme and course leaders, tutors, directors, and creative teams. But if we empower them with the necessary time and space, they have the skills to implement the rest. And whilst not every production will be centred around what number do we call in this emergency that we're living in, the way in which future graduates create the work will have a ripple effect and hopefully change industry. What's next? So in October 2025, we look forward to hosting World Stage Design in association with OISTAT. In our planning stages, we're examining all aspects of how we deliver this quadrennial event sustainably. We're inviting the designers, workshop facilitators, productions and keynotes to do the same. Part of our activity is translating the Theatre Green Book into Arabic. And whilst we won't get everything right, we're exploring how we can minimise our impact. We're looking at modular exhibition design from Beam Matrix, and then also providing training on this particular system in that it could be used more within the local sector in the future. And in October this year, in partnership with Goombuk, we look forward to taking the UN students to the Al Zora Nature Reserve in Ajman as part of Why Art Matters to plant mangroves, where we've committed to planting 1 mangrove for every attendee that visits World Stage Design 2025. This is in contribution to the government's goal of planting 100 million mangroves by 2030. So yeah, thanks for listening. We're sticking around for questions. Hope it's been useful, and we'll be happy to answer them.